Big on starting on time. So I think we're going to get started. I have a little bit to say as an intro while people trickle in. But hi, everyone, and welcome to our June Canny office hours. Thank you so much for joining us. Today, we're going to be exploring ideas, which many of you will know came out of beta earlier in May. So, this is actually a two-part series. We ran a session yesterday, which was for brand new people to ideas, talking about really basic concepts. And today is going to be more of a deep dive to dig into how to get the most out of ideas. So I'm pretty sure everybody who's going to be joining us uses ideas currently, but if not, we'll take it easy on you and you'll be able to keep up. So this is for this session, it's going to be 35 minutes of us explaining kind of these deeper concepts with ideas, and then there'll be time at the end for live Q&A. You can ask questions throughout the call through the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. I'll be answering those. If we have some nice questions that we think everybody would benefit from, I'll let you know we're going to answer it live at the end of the call. But yeah, that's kind of what we're going to be doing today. So, who are we? I'm Claire. I'm the head of operations at Canny. I'm really just here to support Julia, who's the star of the show. So, yeah, I'll be answering your questions and maybe giving some insight at the end. But Julia is our CSM, mostly, well, for our business and enterprise customers. So, some of you, she's your CSM. For those of you who don't know her, she works with our bigger clients to really help them get the most out of their Canny subscription and understand how to utilize it to the fullest. So yeah, I'll give it the floor to you, Julia. Thank you.
Thanks, Claire. Hi, everyone. So excited to walk you through ideas and offer some best practices to get you set up with ideas. As Claire mentioned, this office hours is more for customers who have already enabled ideas and are ready to get set up and build a process around it. If you have not set up ideas yet, I recommend checking out the webinar, like Claire mentioned, that we ran yesterday. Where we walk through a full introduction of ideas. But if you're still curious, feel free to stick around and ask questions as we go along. Today, we're going to walk through the Canny workflow, how you can capture feedback within Canny, how you can start to enrich the feedback, organize, prioritize it, and then close the feedback loop with your internal team members and your customers as well. As Claire mentioned, we do have a little Q&A functionality at the bottom, so please be sure to leverage that if you have any questions. So let's level set and talk really high level about what Canny is and how we can support your team. So Canny helps you to capture feedback, understand what your customers actually need, prioritize based on real customer data, and then close the feedback loop with your teams and your end users. As product people, we know that feedback needs to be broken down. So for example, a customer might submit a piece of feedback called reporting. And to that customer, it makes a lot of sense. It's just one request, improve your reporting. But as we know, reporting is usually made up of many smaller features and tasks, and it's important to be able to connect those pieces and nest them under the right feedback. And so in Canny, through groups and subgroups, you are able to do that, and we will take a look at what that looks like in just a moment. And as product managers, we also need to be able to separate our internal work. We need a place to organize things internally, but we also need to be able to close the feedback loop with our customers. So that means, having internal statuses, internal comments and conversations, and an easy way to plan your work. But we also need a place to share what's being worked on and when, so customers can see the progress, but also so we can build trust with our customers as well. So Canny keeps your internal work and your customer-facing work separate. On the internal side, we have ideas. This is where all of your feedback lives. This is where feedback gets captured and organized and prioritized. And so just to kind of close the loop, you have features like, groups, ideas, subgroups, views, all of this lives within this kind of internal space. Then we have the portal view. This is optional. You may want to collect feedback directly from your customers. And if that's your use case, then we recommend setting up the portal. You can think of the portal as a channel for incoming feedback. And so features that live on this kind of area would be boards, categories, the external facing roadmap. And so this is important because we want to be able to connect easily with our customers and keep them in the loop of what's going on. We're going to dive more into this in just a moment. But first, let's talk about how we can start to capture customer feedback easily. So there are three main ways we can do that within Canny. There is automatically using our autopilot feature, internally through an integration, or externally through the Canny facing portal. We are busy as product people. And so that's why being able to capture feedback easily is a really big deal. And so our autopilot feature allows you to do that. For those who don't know Autopilot, or just as a quick reminder, Autopilot does two main things. Number one, it syncs with various different tools you're already using, like Gong, Intercom, Zendesk, and we automatically identify feedback within these closed conversations using AI, and then we pull it into Canny for you. So you don't need to ask your team to manually submit feedback, it's just automatically captured for you. Number two is Autopilot helps with deduplication. Any new feedback that comes in, regardless of its source, whether it's manually pushed in, added through an integration, or collected through Autopilot, we are scanning the feedback to see if it already exists. And as mentioned, we sync with various different tools. So if you head over to your settings integration page, you'll see the full list of tools that we sync with. If there's something you don't see that you're using, then you can leverage our API feature. So just to recap, all new feedback coming in through Autopilot will automatically create a new piece of feedback for you. So here we have two examples. On the left-hand side, we have an intercom chat, and on the right-hand side, we have a Gong conversation. And Autopilot is able to pull the relevant feedback from these closed transcripts and turn it into ideas. The same applies for merge feedback as well. So when Autopilot merges feedback from sources like Intercom, Gong, or Canny, it gets added as an insight to the relevant idea. So here we can see, there's feedback coming in from many different sources, Slack, Zendesk, etc. Um, all of it is pointing to the same sort of feedback, which is CSV export. So instead of creating separate ideas for each piece of feedback here, Canny recognizes that they're related, and then it suggests merging them into the existing piece of feedback that's already within your Canny space. By default, when Autopilot processes feedback, it creates ideas and insights that are only internal to your team. So your customers will not see the feedback that's coming in through Autopilot. If you want the feedback that comes in from Autopilot to also be visible to your end users on the public facing portal, then you would need to enable a feature called Publish to Portal, which is in your Autopilot settings. This way, your customers can see the request that's come in and they can interact with it right away as well. Otherwise, you can also manually push the feedback to portal as well. So just to recap the process here, all new feedback brought in from Autopilot will automatically turn into an idea with an internal view. However, you get to decide if you want it to also be external facing. To do this, you will need to ensure you toggle on that send to portal feature we just mentioned, or again, you can manually push it to the portal. So let's talk about how we can capture feedback internally. We recommend setting up an integration for your team members. It's a really quick and easy way for your team to submit feedback that already is in with their existing workflow. If you haven't checked out the Slack integration, I really recommend it. It's a powerful integration. So by default, feedback that comes in through integrations like Slack, or if you're on our business plan through Salesforce, it will only create an internal, it will create an idea with an internal view only. However, if you want feedback to automatically show up publicly as well, very similar to the autopilot feature we just looked at, you would need to enable the send to portal feature. This means anytime feedback comes in through an integration, it will also create an external view. So by default, it will create an internal view and it will create an external view. So this way, your customers will be able to see it right away and again, add their feedback. If you want to collect feedback directly from your customers, then you can do this through the portal. So this is how we collect feedback externally. Customers would need to pick a board, which are customer-facing channels that guide people on where to submit their feedback so we can keep everything organized. And then they would submit their feedback. We're going to cover boards and how to set that up in just a moment. When a customer submits feedback through the customer-facing portal, it comes into Canny as an idea with both an internal and portal view or external view by default. This allows you to keep all of your internal work separate from what you're sharing with your end users. So to break it down, if you do decide to leverage the portal, as mentioned, feedback will come in as an idea with both an internal and external view. If you decide to set up an integration like Slack, for example, then it comes into Canny as an idea with an internal view by default, but you have the opportunity to choose if you also want to make it external facing as well. So to revisit boards, finally, boards are the kind of top level container for organizing feedback, and they make it really simple or easy for your customers to know where they should be submitting their feedback. I'd recommend setting your boards up either by the area of product or by the type of feedback you expect to receive. So, for example, that would be like bug requests, feature enhancements, feature requests. Um, if you've been at Canny for a little while, note that boards have obviously not disappeared, but their role has changed. So boards are purely for giving your customers a place to submit feedback. Groups are now how you organize feedback internally. So you can think of boards as a place for your customers to submit feedback, and groups are meant for your team to organize your feedback. Um, as we know, as product managers, product management is kind of a mix of art and science. And we want to make it as easy as possible for you to gather customer data so you can make smarter decisions and ensure you're building the right thing. So how do we do that? There's a few ways. Number one, you can connect to an SDK. You can connect to an integration that already collects customer data like Zendesk or Intercom. Or if you're on the business plan, you're able to connect to HubSpot or Salesforce. And having that data helps you understand the dollar amount on the line, which is really important. It helps you to build a prioritization score and helps you to create customer segments as well. On the top left-hand side here, you can see how much ARR is on the line for this particular feature. And down at the bottom right-hand side, you can see a customer segment that I've created called VIP customers, which helps me understand which features I should be prioritizing. So we've covered how to capture feedback, how to collect data points that matter when it comes to prioritization. So let's talk about how we can start to organize your feedback a little bit better. I think it's important to revisit groups and the whole hierarchy structure. So let's review. So groups, again, are you can think of them as folders. They represent product areas, initiatives, high-level themes. Within groups, you can create subgroups, which are optional, and they help you kind of organize more specific features or focus areas underneath that group. Ideas live inside groups and subgroups. These are your action items, your tasks, your feature requests, and again, are internal by default. But again, you can make them external if you like. An idea can also have a sub-idea. A sub-idea is a smaller piece of work that supports or builds on a larger idea. And then finally, there's something called insights. Insights are basically evidence as to why something should be prioritized. They're individual pieces of feedback brought in from Canny, brought in from your internal team members, from Autopilot, again, that all help to support an idea. It's important to understand the difference between groups and ideas because sometimes it can get a little bit tricky and we get confused on how to set this up. So just to reiterate, groups and subgroups are meant to be more permanent. They represent high-level areas of your product or ongoing initiatives. You can think of them again like folders. They don't have an end date typically, or don't usually get completed. They just kind of hold everything underneath them. Ideas are the actual pieces of work that live inside the group. They have a life cycle, so they get discovered, prioritized, built, and then shipped. A simple way to know the difference is if you're needing to assign a status, then it's likely an idea. If it's just there to help organize and hold other things, that's a group. Here's what it looks like in practice. So you would have a group, for example, called reporting. Inside that group, you might have a subgroup called data exports. Then inside that subgroup, you would have an idea. For example, maybe it would be schedule CSV exports. The idea represents the actual piece of work. It should have a status and a timeline, and the group and subgroups, again, are just there to help you organize everything underneath them. We don't recommend naming your groups things like Q3 roadmap, customer requests, team A, or company objectives. Think about the feedback that's coming into Canny. Groups are just there to organize that feedback. So we know your customers would never submit something about your Q3 roadmap. So it doesn't make sense to name your group that. An idea should never be broad or evergreen. An idea should always be a specific task with a clear timeline and a status. If for whatever reason you do need to be able to group related feedback to, let's say, Q3, et cetera, then I would recommend using a field. Another important feature that works alongside groups and subgroups is auto sorting. This automatically organizes your feedback into the right group so your team doesn't need to manually do this. Auto grouping reads the feedback coming into Canny, regardless of the source. So whether it's being pushed in manually from your customers, ingested through autopilot, or added through an integration, um, we are automatically placing it into the right group for you based on the descriptions that you've written for each group. So instead of someone on your team having to manually sort through ideas and make sure it's in the right place, our AI will do that for you. The better your group descriptions are, the better our AI is at sorting it into the correct group. Here's some best practices when it comes to setting up your descriptions. Keep your description specific to the type of feedback that belongs there. Autopilot reads your group descriptions to decide where to place the incoming feedback. The more specific and keyword rich your descriptions are, the better our AI is at sorting the ideas into the right group. So, for example, instead of just having your group description be reporting group, write something like feedback related to reporting features, data exports, dashboards, analytics, etc. Also, include the actual words that your customers use when they're submitting feedback. So if your customers usually say things like, I can't download my data rather than CSV exports, include both variations in the details. For subgroups, make the description specific enough that it's clear and distinct from its parent group and sibling subgroup. If Autopilot can't tell the difference between the two subgroups, it won't be able to sort accurately. Also, avoid using the same keyword across different groups. If two groups share the same keyword, then Autopilot won't know where to, won't understand that piece of feedback. Just test your feedback by pushing in a few pieces of feedback and then seeing where our AI places them. And if it keeps landing in the wrong space, then it's time to revisit your description. As we know, an idea can have two possible views, so let's review both in detail. By default, an idea will have an internal view, but again, you have the possibility to also have an external view as well. And this allows us to separate our work easily. And it's important to know how to use each view, so let's go through it. What we're looking at here is the internal view. This is where all of your internal work gets done. Here, you're able to add a description to explain more about the task that you're working on. You're able to add an attachment or file for any additional context. If the task has a smaller task or pieces of work that roll up to that, here you can add sub-ideas. And again, sub-ideas have its own owner, status, and priority. And one important thing to understand, again, is our insights. Insights are strictly internal. This is where your team can add more context about why a feature matters to your customers. On the left-hand side, you'll notice that there are kind of three different colors for each insight. Each color represents urgency. If you hover over the insight, it will show you how urgent this feature is to a particular customer. The urgency is determined by your internal team who's submitting feedback on behalf of that customer. On the right-hand side, you will see the details panel. So this will show any default details that come with Canny, and then any custom fields that your team would like to create will also show up here as well. On the top right-hand side of the internal idea, you'll see something called an impact overview. This is your source of truth for understanding how important an idea is to your customer. Here you can see how many individuals or companies have requested this feature, the MRR or ARR associated to that, and any related opportunities as well if you're on our business plan. When you click into it, you'll be able to see the full breakdown. This makes it a lot easier to understand the true impact this feature has. Next to the Insight tab, you'll see a tab called Activity. This is where you can see everything that your team has done on this particular idea. So any status changes, field updates, etc. I also recommend getting into the habit of leaving internal comments here. You can tag your teammates, which will send them an email notification that they've been added to that particular feature. I would use this space as a way to collaborate internally. Then we have the portal view. So here is where you're able to do all of your external work. The external view is where you're able to see your customers' comments and reply to them. You're also able to see how many end users have voted on this particular feature. You also have an external status here too, which, speaking of, you may have noticed there are two separate statuses. Sometimes we don't want our customers to know the status of something internally because, as we know, things can change. So we want to have an internal status so we can share, know where things are with our team. And then we want a status that we can share with our end users. The internal status keeps our team up to date, and then the portal status is what our customers see. When you update an internal status, a pop-up will appear asking if you would also like to update the portal status. We also have status mapping. So this is helpful if there are certain statuses you feel confident sharing externally with your customers. So for example, when something moves to in progress internally, and anytime something's in progress, it's definitely in progress and you want to share it with your customers. So that's where you would use status mapping to be able to make that connection. So let's review how we can start to prioritize all of our feedback within Canny. There are a few ways that we can do this. Number one is through custom fields, by creating a score, by creating themes, and by filtering your view. So let's go through each one. In Canny, fields help you add structured data to your ideas so you can better organize, filter, and report on the feedback. You are able to add and edit a field within a view, like we're looking at here, or you can edit on the actual idea as well. To create a new field, you would click on Field, then add Create New Field. From there, you can choose how you want the field to be displayed. So checkbox, rating, text. So for example, if I wanted to create a tagging system, I would create a new field, choose text, and then once we have that in place, you can easily start to fill out your information directly within the view. You're also able to create multiple scores. To create a new score, you go to Fields, Create New, then select Score as the type, and you're able to apply a weight for each field, which helps to create the actual score. Again, you're able to have multiple formulas or scores at the same time, which is really helpful instead of creating multiple views. Views are a really helpful way to manage feedback more effectively. Views are built using filters and fields, and you can customize and create as many views as your team needs. Each group has its own set of views. So you can see in my reporting group, there are different views than to my transportation group. And this allows you to separate your workflow and keep your groups organized. You're also able to filter your views. So any default field or a field that you create, you're able to filter on. So let's say I wanted to create a view to only see the ideas that I'm working on. I would create a new view and we'll call it Dawn's View, my alter ego, apparently, and we'll filter on that owner field. And anything that is assigned to me will populate here. Finally, you can also swim lane your view. You're able to swim lane either by hierarchy, owner, or status. If you haven't checked out themes, I highly recommend it. Themes are a way to track higher level initiatives and see how they're trending over time. So, for example, if you've recently changed your billing and you want to be able to track all feedback related to that, you would create a theme called billing and then assign it to the relevant ideas. You can head over to the reporting page in Canny to see how the theme is tracking over time. This is what it looks like here. A common question we get is what's the difference between themes and fields and when should we be using them? Themes are high-level topic categories. You use them to group ideas by subject area so you can spot patterns across feedback. Um, each idea can be assigned to one or more theme at a time. You can also turn on autopilot for themes, which means Canny will automatically assign the right theme to incoming ideas for you. Fields are more kind of structured data points attached to your idea. There are two types of fields. Number one, the default fields that come built into Canny. So things like your status, owner, created date. And then there's custom fields, which are the ones that your team creates to capture information specific to your workflow. So things like maybe priority, or maybe you want to track effort or impact. And so that's when you would use those specific fields. If you're unsure on where to start in terms of creating a view for, let's say, your product team specifically, um, some common views that we see our customers create include adding the status, MRR or ARR, due date, some sort of time horizon, like now, next, later, and some sort of prioritization score. Some customers also add pillars or company objectives to each feature to also help with their prioritization. If you need to create a leadership view, they usually need to see obviously the bigger picture. They need to step back. And so this is a good way to leverage themes actually, because you're able to sort by themes and then you can share with your leadership team what's trending. Finally, closing the feedback loop with your GTM team, as we know, is really important. And so we recommend creating a view for them and then add things like the status, the owner, the due date, so they know who to speak to and when something will be delivered. Finally, speaking of closing the feedback loop, let's review how you can do this in Canny today. There are three main ways that we can do this. Number one is through the changelog, through status changes, or exporting your data. First is the changelog. It's a simple announcement tool. It's like a public log of everything that your team has launched, and it's a great way to show progress and build trust with your end users. Then we have status changes. Anytime you update the public status, you have the opportunity to also notify everyone who's voted on that specific feature request. You can also reply to customers' comments too directly so they feel heard. Maybe you want to ask more about their request, get more information. If you're on our pro or business plan, you can take it one step further and enable smart replies, which basically leverages AI to automatically reply to that customer's comment. And then finally, a really easy way to close the loop is through exporting your data. So you can see where you just need to click on the right-hand side of a view, click export, and then voila, you have this lovely report that you can share with your leadership team, with your CSMs, sales teams, perhaps even a customer, if that's what works best for you. So that was our office hours today, where we walk through best practices for setting up ideas. I'd love to open it up to any questions if anyone has any.
Great. We have two questions, but while we're answering those, if any attendees want to send in some more questions, we have some time. So someone just said they don't have access to the Salesforce integration. And is there another way to get MRR data into Canny for enrichment? We were just talking about this today.
Yeah, great question. So, like I said, either if you're using a tool like Zendesk or Intercom, you are able to it does sync that data for you. I believe you can also use an API, Claire. Is that right? Yes, you can also use an API to leverage that as well.
Yeah, you can. We have a lot of customers who use the API. I guess the pro of using the CRM integration is it's pre-built. All you do is plug it in and it updates daily all of your information. We do appreciate that some people are need to stay on the pro plan. So the only caveat would be that someone on your engineering team or that can build APIs will need to set that up for you. And then we recommend syncing the data with whatever works for you. Like, I don't think everybody's MRR data is changing daily, but if you want it to be a daily sync, you just need to make sure that the API is configured in that way. Cool. And then I answered this question, but I think it's helpful for everybody else to know because I ran into this with a customer this week. It's just how do I run auto grouping? Do you want to talk
Yeah.
about the ways to do that?
Yes. Okay. So let me just pull up this really quick. This is you can ignore this video, but what I want to show you here is this little guy here. You'll also see it here, if you can see the drawing on my screen. So that's how you run auto grouping. You just click on this guy here. Anything that does not have a group associated will automatically be filtered into the appropriate group, again, based on the descriptions that you apply. Does that cover it, Claire? Did I miss anything?
It does cover it. The only caveat is you need to have at least three groups. So when I was testing it this week, I only had two groups in my test account. And I was like, where is that auto group button? So the button only appears when there's three groups or more. You can dismiss that save hours of manual triage pop up if you like a clean screen, but the auto grouping icon will always live beside the plus icon at the groups level.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Thanks, Claire.
Yeah. One more time in Canny, which is good. Great. Those were all of the questions that we had. If nobody else has any other questions, we can, end the call there. But we just wanted to say thanks a lot for taking the time to learn more about ideas. Again, this product came out of beta in May, and we're super happy with how it is at the moment. We're always open to your feedback. So if there's anything feedback related about how the product looks and feels, and works for you at the moment, we'd love to hear it. Also, if you have any feedback on this webinar, there'll be a link in the follow-up email that we send you probably today. Our marketing team is pretty prompt on sending out the follow-up. So you'll get a recording of this call and the slide deck. But yeah, we'd love any feedback on the call. So yeah, thank you so much for your time and have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.